Okay, well, welcome everyone to this webinar. Hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. My name is Susan McGuire. I'm Manager of Professional Development at ACCE, and I'm happy to welcome you to today's webinar. Today we're going to hear from Ehrlich, who is the Director of Operations for Political Affairs and Federation Relations at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and 3 chamber professionals who have gone through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce accreditation program with their chambers. Gary Mabry, CCE, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce serving Johnson City, Jonesboro, and Washington County, Tennessee. Jim Fram, former President and CEO of the Greater Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce in Arkansas. And Diane Callahan, Vice President of Organizational Development for the Cookeville-Putnam County Chamber of Commerce in Tennessee. Ali will provide an overview of the accreditation program and application process, and Diane, Gary, and Jim will talk about how they prepared for the process and achieved this mark of continuing chamber excellence. So before I turn the program over to our presenters, we do have a few housekeeping notes. First, attendees are in listen-only mode during the webinar to avoid background noise. Second, after the presentation, we will have time for questions, which you can ask by using the question function of your webinar. The question box is on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Just type in your question and I will read the question to our panel. If we run out of time and don't get to your question, or if you have a question that you would prefer to discuss with us individually offline, please feel free to contact Ali directly. Her contact information is going to be on the last slide of the presentation. And so we can get in touch with you after the webinar. And third, this webinar is being recorded and it should be up on the ACCE website on the ACCE webinar page by Monday, December 11th. The presentation slides will also be posted along with the webinar recording. As I indicated before, I've also posted the presentation as a handout on the webinar panel. If you take a look at the right-hand side webinar panel towards the bottom, you'll see where the handout has been uploaded. Just click on the handout to upload it, or download it rather. If it doesn't work or you prefer not to access it during the webinar, that's not a problem. It will be posted after the webinar along with the recording. I will note that I'm using a little bit different audio than I usually do. We're having a little bit of a conference room phone issue, so please bear with us. And we will post the presentation slides and the recordings if anything is missed due to audio or whatever. So I appreciate your patience with this. So with that, I will introduce our speakers. Ehrlich is the Director of Operations in the Political Affairs and Federation Relations Division at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. She's responsible for the Chamber's accreditation program, as well as professional development for the Association Committee of 100 and the Chamber of Commerce Committee of 100. She manages both Chamber and Association memberships to the U.S. Chamber. Before joining the Chamber, she was a legislative assistant on Capitol Hill, focusing on healthcare, energy policy, appropriations, and economic development. Ali is a 2015 graduate of the Institute for Organization Management and received her Certified Association Executive, or CAE, credential in 2017. She received her BA in International Affairs from George Washington University, and she lives in Bethesda, Maryland, with her husband and 2 children. Jim Fram is founder and principal of Community Growth Services, LLC. He's the former president and CEO of the Greater Hot Springs Chamber of Commerce and the Hot Springs Metro Partnership, and is currently Special Projects Manager of the Greater Hot Springs Chamber. Jim attended the University of Arkansas while serving honorably in the U.S. Air Force and Arkansas National Guard. Since the early 80s, he launched a professional 30-plus year career as an economic development chamber executive who has achieved success in job creation, new capital investment, increasing of public revenues, and product development in small communities, medium-sized cities, and larger metro areas. He's a graduate of the Economic Development Institute at University of Oklahoma and the U.S. Chamber Institute for Organization Management. He's a certified economic developer and a certified chamber executive, or CCE. He's past chair of the Oklahoma Governor's Economic Development Team, and Oklahoma Economic Developer of the Year, and Arkansas Chamber Executive of the Year. He serves on the Accrediting Committee of the International Economic Development Council. Diane Callahan has served with the Cookeville-Putnam County Chamber of Commerce for 13 years in various capacities before being promoted to Vice President of Organizational Development in 2014. She completed TCCE in 2008 and earned her IOM from Southeast Institute in 2013. As Vice President of Organizational Development, she's responsible for strengthening relationships with current Chamber members and recruiting and cultivating new members. Strong partnerships are created between the Chamber and its members through a tiered benefit investment schedule, which increases revenue for the Chamber and a better ROI for the member. Her previous career was as procurement manager for Cummins Engine Company, and she's discovered her true passion in this second career as a Chamber of Commerce professional. And finally, Gary Mabry, President and CEO of the Johnson City, Jonesboro, Washington County Chamber of Commerce, is in his 30th year of service with the Chamber, a 5-star accredited chamber. He's been elected to the U.S. Chamber Board of Directors, and he currently serves on its Accreditation Board, National Security Task Force, Chamber of Commerce of 100, and Small Business Council. He graduated from the Chamber's Institute for Organization Management in 1996 and has served as an instructor and class advisor. He's a certified Chamber executive, a past member of the ACCE Board of Directors, past president of the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce Executives, and a member of the State Chamber of Commerce. He's a graduate of East Tennessee State University, serves on its foundation and the Gatton College of Pharmacy Board of Visitors. And in 2015, the ETSU National Alumni Association selected Gary as its outstanding alumnus. He is an honorably discharged veteran of the United States Air Force, and he and his wife Jackie have 3 daughters and 1 grandson. So thank you to all of our panelists for being with us here today and sharing your advice and experience. And at this point, Allie, I will turn the presentation over to you.
Thanks, Susan, and that was a really great introduction. Thanks for that, and to all of you for joining the webinar today. As Susan said, I'm Allie Ehrlich, and I manage the accreditation program at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Now, whether you've heard of accreditation only recently, or perhaps you're the new executive at a currently accredited chamber, I hope this presentation gives you a better understanding for the U.S. Chamber's accreditation program, things like, what is accreditation, a bit about the application process, the benefits of becoming accredited. I also hope that it helps answer some of the questions that you guys submitted during the registration process. Thank you for those. Again, as Susan said, if anybody has questions that kind of pop into their head during the course of this presentation, please feel free to enter it into that box, and I'll try to either get to it during the course of my presentation or at the end. Susan did a fantastic job of doing an introduction of our 3 volunteer speakers, but I again want to thank them for joining us. They're here to share their thoughts about why accreditation is a great tool, what it's like to go through the application process, and the payoff and value of becoming accredited. So let's get started with the most commonly asked question I get: what is accreditation? Accreditation is a designation given to chambers of commerce by the board of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The program recognizes chambers for not only meeting but for exceeding industry standards, and it's something to be very proud of. To give you a little background about the program, it was created in 1963 at the request of local chambers and ACCE, because chambers really wanted to develop a national set of standards that assessed and benchmarked chamber objectives, resources, programs of work, procedures, and achievements. Since the creation of the program, there have been more than 800 chambers to become accredited across the United States. So now that we've gone over, what accreditation is, let's talk about how you go about getting it. And the application is really the backbone of the accreditation process. There are 9 sections of the application, and they cover all aspects of a chamber's operation. They're listed above. Each section contains minimum requirements that must be met for accreditation, as well as an additional criteria section, and that's used to determine an accredited chamber's star designation. The application is updated regularly to ensure that it meets industry standards and that it matches chamber practices. To do this, we regularly review findings in the ACCE operations survey, inputs from our volunteer board, and our applicants. To get the process started, I recommend you visit the accreditation website and then take our self-analysis survey. And here's where you're going to find those minimum requirements I spoke about just a couple of minutes ago. It's a checklist, and it'll give you an idea for whether or not your chamber is ready to begin the application process. It'll show you the items that you need to develop, get you thinking about, and you can start gathering some of those materials that you need to use for submission. Next, we ask you to complete and submit an intent to apply form. And this is really just a simple web form that lets me know your timeline. We accept applications 3 times each year, March 31st, August 31st, and December 31st. And you'll be asked to identify your estimated submission date. If you submit a date and then your plans change, feel free to resubmit and just send me an email letting me know your new timeline. Once that's taken care of, you're free to download the digital application. It lives on our website. It's not something that you have to wait to look at. You can look at it at any time. It's currently in 9 separate PDFs online, and again, it relates back to those 9 sections. As you complete the application, use the samples posted on the best practices page of our website for reference. They're really helpful. Even if a chamber is not going through the accreditation process, I often share this page as a resource. It has great examples of chamber bylaws, org charts, policy manuals, and of course you can always call the accreditation staff at any time throughout the process. My direct number and my email will be at the end of this presentation, but it's also on the website, and it's 202-463-5760. So once you've answered all the questions and essays, saved your 9 sections, to either a flash drive or a CD, you then send that plus a signature and conclusion page with your payment to the chamber in the mail in time for one of our deadlines. As I said earlier, we accept the application 3 times a year. It typically takes about 3 months to process an application. For example, chambers that submit at the end of March will hear back in June about their status. If you apply at our August 31st deadline, you'll hear back in November. The application fee is $699 for U.S. Chamber members and $11.99 for non-members. Now, I'd like to make a quick note here for those of you who either attend Institute or have staff that attend Institute. There's always an application fee voucher auctioned at each site. And in 2017, the average price of that voucher came to just about $400. So this is a great value to chambers who plan to apply in the coming year. And if you or your staff plan to attend Institute or ACCE or WACE annual meetings, I encourage you to keep an eye out for it. We have it at those events as well. So back to the process. Once you submit your application and all minimums are determined to have been met, an experienced third-party consultant will assess the application based on the standards established by the accrediting board. Our accrediting board is comprised of CEOs of accredited chambers from across the country, as well as board members of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The accrediting board will review the applicants and also the recommendations of the consultant before it votes to approve a chamber's accreditation designation. Now, if you've met all the minimum requirements, then you become accredited. If you've met all minimum requirements and then 70 to 79% of additional criteria, you'll be accredited with 3 stars. 80 to 89% of additional criteria, you'll be accredited with 4 stars. And if you've met all minimum requirements and 90 to 100% of the additional criteria questions, you'll be accredited with 5 stars. After the accrediting board meeting, applicants are notified of their status. You receive a call and an email from me, as well as a package which includes a congratulatory letter from Chamber President and CEO Tom Donahue, some sample marketing documents and logos for your website, your letterhead, your marketing materials. And then what chambers find extremely useful is a list of recommendations outlining where that chamber can improve. Many chambers use this feedback as a roadmap for creating their strategic plans and setting their long-term goals. If any participants today are chambers that are currently accredited and are beginning the reaccreditation process, or if you haven't been accredited in a while and you want to know what your feedback was previously, I'm happy to send this document to you. So who's accredited today? Out of nearly 7,000 chambers in the nation, 205 are accredited chambers. 200 are local chambers of commerce, meaning chambers at the city, regional, and county level, and there are 5 state chambers accredited as well. Now, I've spent a lot of time talking about the nuts and bolts of the program, but I'm sure you're asking why. Why do I go through all of this? And I can tell you why I think it's a great idea, and then I'll turn it over and let some of our fantastic volunteers give their perspective. First, accreditation is a great tool. It provides, like I said, a roadmap for building sound institutions and really helps develop mechanisms to effectively advocate for businesses in your community. It provides applicants with a top-to-bottom overview of a chamber's operations and programming. It really makes you examine your policies, your documents, your procedures, as well as, assessing the effectiveness of your goals, your volunteers. And last but certainly not least, it brings credibility to your chamber. It lets your members and your community know that you're a chamber that not only meets but exceeds industry standards. It says that the chamber adheres to sound financial practices, its programs are effective, and members investing in your organization have money well spent. I can go on longer about why I think accreditation is a worthwhile endeavor, but I've found that chambers often get the most value out of hearing from others who've recently gone through the process themselves. Kindly joining us today are chamber leaders who've steered their organizations through the accreditation process and are here to share their thoughts on why the program and the process has been beneficial to their chamber's operations, management, and membership. Gary, if you don't mind, would you begin?
Oh, I wouldn't. And hello to everyone. A very pleasant greeting to you for tuning in with our friends at ACCE. Once again, our professional organization is in the forefront of reminding us all about the room for improvement. From our perspective, we were a chamber accredited before we got into the STAR system. We were a 4-star for 2 5-year periods, and then as we continued to do what I just shared, improving ourselves, we achieved 5-star recognition. If I had to just share 3 perspectives with you, one perspective would be it's a great way to introduce your governance, your board, to what a Chamber of Commerce is all about. Secondly, those who work for you or those on your team, it's a great way to continue to put them in a position to do their jobs more effectively. And then when you get the volunteers around the table and you take this on as a team building or an OD exercise or something to that effect, regardless of your first star ranking or when you start out as 5 stars as some do, it just gives you a sense of being unique. And let's face it, 200 or so out of 7,000, that makes your chamber very special. My only other comment would be if you're not sure if you want to do it, go through the process anyway. It will give you some valuable organizational development tools, and then when your time is right, you're right, your staff's right, your governance right, go ahead and do it. So hardly recommend it to you, and would be happy to talk with you offline if I could ever help you. So Allie, thanks for asking, and thanks to all of you for calling in today.
Thanks, Gary. So grateful for your perspective. Jim, I thought maybe you could share a little bit about how your chamber tackled this and kind of the benefits of the program for you.
Sure. Thank you, and thank all of you for tuning into this today. I believe this is a very, very vital and important program for chambers of commerce of any size. And I started in Hot Springs about 4 years ago, and in my opinion, I've been involved in the accreditation process in the past, and to me, the biggest thing, Gary mentioned a tool, a management tool. It's a management tool in that all of us as good managers need to look back internally into our organization, and we need to be sure that personnel policies are up to date and meet current laws and regulations. We need to make sure that our bylaws are updated, and you could go on and on through the forms and things that we use in day-to-day management of our organizations. And to me, the accreditation process kind of forces you to go through that practice on a very regular basis. We chose to go through the accreditation process using committees made up of board members and volunteers. I'm going to guess that we probably had between 50 and 60 people in our community involved in the accreditation process. And again, to both to Allie's and to Gary's point, it helped those 50 to 60 volunteers and board members become much more aware of what the Chamber's mission was, what the Chamber was supposed to be doing, and what the Chamber was supposed to be accomplishing in our community. Then ultimately, when we did receive our 5-star accreditation, it turned into a community-wide celebration. I think we did just about everything except have a parade down Main Street, but we involved a lot of people in it, and it really brought a lot of people into the Chamber fold in our community. Again, as Gary said, I think I can speak for all of us. Be delighted to talk to anybody offline or answer any questions at any time regarding the accreditation process. I'm a heavy supporter of it.
Thanks, Jim. And Diane?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Okay, Allie, have you got a specific question or anything specific you want me to comment on?
Maybe you could share a little bit about the benefits of the top-to-bottom review that the accreditation process involved, or maybe some of the feedback that you guys got and how you might be implementing it.
The feedback is so valuable. I'm so proud of our Chamber and community, and anytime I go to any conferences or anything, I come away thinking about what a great Chamber we have. But do we really? So that was one thing I was very interested in, is how we compared to other chambers, how we compared against best practices. So this accreditation told me what I wanted to know, and that was we are a great chamber, and we were thrilled to reach a 4-star status. But what was so valuable is the board's review and recommendation in, I think, 6 areas that we can start making changes and improvements. These are the facts. These are from experts. And we were proud that 2 of the sections that we received a perfect score on was programs and facilities. So we were proud of that. But this was a first-time effort for our chamber. We're Middle Tennessee. We have chambers in Tennessee at the east and in the west that are accredited, but for Middle Tennessee, this was the first. So we are just super excited, and we're just ready to go and discuss all of the recommendations to even get better. But we're just so excited here, and Allie was so much help, and other chambers that were accredited and had been accredited for a long time were very helpful, and I called on them, and I welcome anybody to call on us here in Cookeville. We would be so glad to help you and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much to our volunteer leaders for your valuable insights and helpful comments. And I'm definitely going to take you up on your offer to be connected to other interested chambers. If you think it's beneficial to speak to these or other chamber executives about the process, I'm happy to put you in touch with accredited chambers that may be, of a similar size or nearby your region. I hope you're able to tell that accreditation is a fantastic tool, is a good team building process, and really quite an achievement. Staff from our regional offices, we have 7 regional offices, and they're happy to attend, annual dinners, committee meetings, events to deliver remarks about this designation and present chambers with their accreditation certificates. We really want to reward and highlight, the work that your organizations have done. I know that I have one question asking about the days again. I think that refers to the application deadlines. It's March 31st, August 31st, and December 31st. And now at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. I will say that I got one about how long is accreditation good for, and your accreditation is good for a period of 5 years, and then you have to reapply. The renewal process is the same as the initial application process. And then regarding feedback, you do get feedback once you apply. Actually, once I receive your application, I will do a review of every essay, every drop-down box, every yes/no answer to make sure that you are answering the questions, as they're meant to be asked, and that your answers kind of make sense. I sometimes give the example of, I once received an application, and when we asked about their member retention rate, they wrote 8%, and I gave them a call and I said, if your member retention rate is 8%, I'm not sure you're in business really. So they were so grateful to have that opportunity because in fact their member retention rate was 88%. And so that's the kind of feedback, and work I do together with the applicants before we, mutually agree that these applications are ready to really move forward, and that's when they'll be evaluated by an independent consultant. So once you send me this application, it should be as if it's final, but you're always going to get a little bit of feedback from me in that very beginning period just to make sure we're really on the same page and your application is as strong as possible so that you can get the most accurate and effective recommendations back. There's another question. How often do folks not get accreditation, meaning they apply and they don't get it? And then you have to pay the $6.99 fee again. Typically, a chamber will know very early on if they have not met the minimum criteria. Like I just said, I give feedback right away, and that will include, hey, you're not hitting some of our minimum requirement benchmarks. Before I deposit your check, do you want to get back to me on some of these things? And so it's not having to pay it twice. You're not even going to pay. If we come to an agreement that you haven't met those minimums, or it may not be beneficial to move forward, and you can either take some time and come back in a couple of months, or send me those documents right away. That's a decision that we kind of make together. There's another question, but I'm having a hard time getting to it.
Allie, I can read it to you.
Thank you.
It says, what is the average time to complete the application for submission? Is it a matter of months? Or
well, I think this will be a great question for some of our volunteer speakers. I always tell chamber to give themselves a good 6 to 8 months to complete the process, but maybe somebody who's led a chamber through this can answer that question.
Well, this is Gary. I will say that our first effort under the STAR system probably was in the 6 to 8 month era, but once you do one, then you kind of know what to do. So the next one was around 6 months. Again, it's all in direct proportion to how you organize it, volunteer staff it, but figure a good 6 months, but it's time well spent. You just work it into everything else you do during your day. Since we're not on the schedule and we're always working, that's just another good thing to do.
Allie, this is Diane, and I would like to say that one way we were successful is that we did spend 6 months, but we had a timeline with milestones and deadlines within that 6 months that we needed to have this section done by a certain date, or we need to be halfway through by a certain date. We would review it. It was a team effort, and we were always meeting our internal milestone deadlines so that we knew we would meet the main deadline in that 6 month period, and that really helped us get through it.
I would advise, especially if this is your first time, your first attempt, to really make this a learning experience for your board, for your volunteers, and for your staff. And don't be in a hurry. Take the time that you need to really look at all the parts of it, all the phases, and to make sure you're doing what your community and what your chamber wants to do with it.
I can't say I agree with that and more. I really do agree. Take your time. In some cases, less is more, but when it comes to accreditation, more is more. Tell me your chamber story. Tell me what you guys have done. So I always encourage chambers to really just take the time and get it done thoroughly, and you'll find that it really benefits your chamber in the end. there was a question about how our star rankings determined. So if your chamber has met all your minimum requirements, you get accredited. And then depending on how much of the additional criteria benchmarks you've met, that's your 3, 4, and 5 stars. So 70 to 79% of additional criteria is 3 stars, 80 to 89% of additional criteria is 4 stars, and then 90 to 100% of additional criteria is 5 stars. Were there any other questions?
Allie, there's a couple more. I'll read them. The first one is, I'm planning on applying for accreditation and also applying for the Georgia Chamber certification too at the same time. Have any of the panelists done that? Applied for a state and then the U.S. Chamber accreditation at the same time?
I actually know that in some, I'm not familiar with Georgia, but I know that in some state accreditation programs, if you're accredited by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, you can get that state designation as well. But unfortunately, I'm not familiar with each state designation.
Okay. Another question is, this participant heard that there's a requirement for the chamber to have a minimum 3 months reserved for accreditation. And I guess he's asking if that's the case.
Yeah, so the reserves question is one of the additional criteria questions. And so that's not a minimum requirement. We do ask you about what your reserves is in the additional criteria section, but in the minimum requirements, we ask things like, does the chamber meet, GAAP accounting practices? Is there an operational budget in place? Does the chamber maintain financial statements? One of the minimum requirements in the finance section is, does the chamber meet our standards for an audit? So chambers with revenue below $500,000 must conduct an annual review by a certified financial firm, and then an audit every 3 years. Chambers with revenue of more than $500,000 must have an audit every other year, an audit every other year, and then a review in the off years. So we don't have that question in our minimum requirements.
Okay. Another question is, are all sections of the application equally weighted?
Each has its own weighting system. And you'll see in the application itself, some sections are longer than others.
Okay. And then there's a question is, where is the test application on the page? I think maybe they're asking where the link to the application is.
Sure. So the self-analysis survey and the application itself is on the local chambers page.
Okay. I don't know, that may be something I can, when I post the recording, I might be able to post some key links to the U.S. Chambers site and, provide some ready access to that.
Great.
This question is, can a chamber foundation, a 501c3, be accredited if the chamber 501c6 is not?
Typically, my thought is no. We're not in the the program is really for chambers of commerce and not for foundations. We have had chambers with foundations apply, but we don't accredit foundations. Our program is meant for just accrediting chambers of commerce with small business members.
Okay. This, I guess, is on timing. Do I need to go ahead and apply now if planning to send it in March or August?
So if you're planning to apply in either March or August, what I would say is, send me your intent to apply form and then decide, what timeline works best for your organization. And you can submit, March 31st or August 31st. But, to be honest, if you're done in May, send it to me and I'll put it towards the August deadline. If you're done in February, send it to me and I'll put it towards the March deadline. And that's postmarked. That's not in my hands by those dates.
Allie, this is Jim, and I know you've got your photo and contact info on the screen. One of the things that we did that really helped us is when we had questions, we would call Allie and ask her. Also, your regional rep with the U.S. Chamber can be very helpful in answering questions or helping you through this process.
And let me hitchhike real quick on that. For those of you who have tuned in, you know the great work you get from our ACCE organization and all of that with Susan. But I want to assure you that if you sign on to do accreditation, Allie and Raymond and the team at the U.S. Chamber and even the Accreditation Commission will work as closely with you as we can to assure that you achieve and exceed your expectations. But I will affirm what Jim said. I think Allie is someone who will be your partner and your friend, and you'll probably even want her to come and celebrate when you get it.
Some of my favorites.
I second that emotion.
She just needs a road trip every now and then.
Yes, she does.
And then also, if anybody plans to attend Institute, there are U.S. Chamber staff there that can always put you in touch with me. If Raymond's there, he can answer questions. But, you know, let us help you. Use me as a resource. Use our team as a resource. We want to get you there. So, you know, let's get there together.
Okay. We have a time for a few more. Can each section of the application be submitted as completed, or should everything be submitted together as one package?
So it's my preference that you send the whole application as one package, all 9 sections plus the conclusion page and your payment. That said, as you're working through this, if you say, hey, you know, I finished my governance section, do you mind taking a look at it? Of course. It might take me a couple of days, but I'm definitely going to get back to you. I'm going to, you know, give it a quick run through. I'll say, you know, I really like this essay. You know, maybe you want to strengthen it a little bit, or hey, did you mean to leave this question out? So I can give you feedback on, you know, sections here and there. I don't know if I can do that for every section, but I'm certainly happy to give it a good, you know, a good review, give you my thoughts on best practices, and then you're going to get that really comprehensive feedback, you know, once you submit the whole thing.
Okay. And then one final question has to do with where the intent to apply form is on the website.
Sure, that's also on the, I think it's under the local chamber page on the accreditation website. I am happy to send a link to that around to the attendees.
Okay. That would be awesome. Thank you, Allie. I think that's all questions we have. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, again, I just want to say thank you again to Gary and to Jim and to Diane and you, Susan, for hosting this webinar. You know, I really enjoy these sessions. I think it's a great program. I think that it's been a really good benefit to a lot of our chamber friends, and I hope this has been informative. My contact info is listed here. Please don't hesitate to reach out if there are questions that come up, you know, later or as you begin working on this application with your staff. And like I said, if you have any questions, just please use me as a resource.
Well, thank you, Allie, and thank you, Diane, Jim, Gary. Really appreciate you making this great information available to our members in such a organized and concise form, and all the good advice. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for participating and for asking questions. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. If I can help in any way, I'd be happy to as well. But of course, Allie is the expert. And just a reminder that this webinar has been recorded. I will get everything together and post it on our webinar page no later than Monday. And I will put some helpful links and resources along with Allie's handout. Posted along with the webinar as well. So I think that's it. Thank you, everybody. I'm wishing you all a wonderful afternoon. Just to note that our next ACC University webinar is next Thursday, a week from today, on renewing your leadership development program, a panel led by our own Sarah Melby and other chamber professionals on leadership development. So that will be one to participate in if you're interested in that topic. So thanks very much, everyone. and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Susan. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.